Greetings, Starfighters. Welcome to Season 12 of Shameless Cashgrab, which is going to be the first full season of the show produced in Afrikaner-occupied America. Yeah, watch Elon Musk is going to get kicked out before I post this episode. I mean, which would be good, mind you, because fuck that guy, but that would also kind of ruin the joke. Oh, well, Peter Thiel is still involved, at least behind the scenes. You know, if you told me, about 20, 30 years ago when I was watching Lethal Weapon 2 for the first time, that the villains, that one day my country would basically be run by the dumbest possible version of the bad guys from that movie, I would not have believed you. Of course, Lethal Weapon 2, I mean, I don't think you could blame anyone who watched that movie when they were a kid thinking that Mel Gibson actually hated Nazis. Well, that goes to show how good of an actor he used to be. Anyway, Rock Hudson Collection, we are starting with a movie called, this is a little, movie called Has Anybody Seen My Gal? And, Piper Laurie is in this. This ought to be interesting because I mainly know her from horror movies like the original Carrie and The Faculty. So that should be interesting. This is from 1952. Oh, I can actually clearly read the years on this. Maybe oh well, no, this one's hidden by a disc. Hold on. 1952. Yeah, this is going to be the oldest movie on this set. Everything else is from the mid-'60s. I'm sorry if you can hear the cat whining in the background right now. The little drama goblin has been fed already. Anyway, yes, let's just try to find whatever joy we can, because the motherfuckers in charge right now really hate that. They want us to suffer, either for reasons of spite or because they delusionally think that suffering means we have a better chance of getting into heaven. Either way, fuck them. Fuck Elon Musk. Fuck Donald Trump. Let's watch a Rock Hudson movie, because why not? Hey, real quick, I didn't even take time to shave. I caught this while I was editing the audio for the episode. Several times throughout, I refer to Piper Laurie's character's little sister. Piper Laurie is Millie, and Gigi. I butcher her name in the main episode too. Plays Roberta. Several times throughout the episode, I keep calling Roberta Barbara. I was able to catch a few of them, but the rest, it would have just been too much effort. So I would have had to redo almost the entire episode, and I think I got a little sunburn there. So just a heads up for that. All right, so I have watched Has Anybody Seen My Gal? From 1952. Plot summary courtesy of IMDb. An aging, heirless millionaire wants to leave his fortune to the unsuspecting family of his first love, but not before testing his prospective heirs by living with them under the guise of a poor boarder. Short and to the point. After an opening credit sequence with some cute drawings of who I assume to be characters we'll meet later in the movie proper begins with text telling us this story takes place in the late 20s, and that's what it says, no specific year is given, and we are in New York. We get an old man in bed having his lawyer read his will to him to make sure he got everything right. A doctor shows up and there is some light bickering. We learn more details about the family he'll be leaving his fortune to that was mentioned in the summary. TLDR, the mother of the family recently deceased had, well, this is in the plot summary, but had been a love of his decades prior, and he had asked her to marry him, but she said no, which he credits for his decision to leave his hometown and eventually strike it rich in Alaska and Texas. His lawyer and doctor tell him he should get to know the adult daughter of the former love and her family first, insisting he won't be recognized if he shaves his beard. He does this, and shortly after arriving in his old town, he spots the granddaughter of his former girlfriend and follows her to a drugstore where locals are dancing to the song this movie gets its title from. This is a pretty elaborate number here. For a moment I thought maybe this was a musical. Not so much, though there will be more singing later. Anyway, this is also where we meet Rock Hudson as a visibly overworked soda jerk trying to tell all the dancing people that he can only take one order at a time. Anyone who's worked in retail can relate to this. Oh, how little has changed in the 100 years since this film is set. After complaining about the price of aspirin and a type of soda I've never heard of before, he continues to follow Millie, that's the name of the granddaughter, of his ex, as she heads home. All you'd have to do is change the score of this scene and it'd be something out of a horror movie. I mean, we in the audience know he doesn't have any ill intentions towards this young woman. A little self-serving, but nothing gross. But if she had spotted him following her like that, she'd have been well within her rights to knee him in the groin at the very least. The millionaire's name is Sam Fulton, by the way. He'll be using an alias for, the rest of the movie from this point. But I'll just call him Fulton for the rest of the video. After he sees Millie's house, he goes to the local paper to put in an advertisement, and we fade cut to a paperboy throwing a paper on the porch of Millie's house. And here's where I have to take back what I said about him not being gross. He shows up at their house and claims that, Fulton shows up at their house and claims he's there answering the advertisement for the room that was in the paper. The ad that he placed. Yikes. He gives his fake name here and pretends to be an artist, even going to the lengths of buying an easel. As it so happens, there actually is an unused room in the house that had belonged to Millie's grandmother, aka Fulton's former love. After this, we get to a dinner scene and we learn some more about the family, up to and including that Millie's mother is trying to not so slyly get her to date someone other than Rock Hudson's character because the other boy is rich. And she is so manipulative about it. I mean, the scene where Millie tries to get out of the date she was set up on without her consent plays like something you'd see on r/Entitled Parents. The rich boy shows up to the house, dressed somewhat like a 1970s pimp in a 1950s movie set in the 1920s.
Space is warped and time is bendable.
I really do not know what to think about this. Let's just move on. We do get a good joke when Fulton, still posing as an artist, manages to weasel out of accidentally revealing it to Millie's little sister by invoking surrealism. When she sees what Fulton painted, she asks him if he's going to hang it up in his bedroom, and he says hanging's too good for it. I think I've actually heard that almost exact joke used elsewhere before. I wonder if that was referencing this movie. We return to the drugstore, and there's some character stuff between Fulton and Millie's father. This leads to Dan, this is Rock Hudson's character, teaching Fulton how to be a soda jerk. It all makes sense in context, complete with a montage. Much ice cream is spilled in the process. And then we get a James Dean cameo, where he makes a malt order that sounds like a comedian making fun of a Starbucks order. And that's his contribution to the film. Bye, James Dean. Anyway, Millie seeks out Dan and finds him at the library and asks him what he's reading. He holds up the cover to her and says, "It." Okay, I know full well that this is not the Stephen King It. This movie came out in 1952. But it is still so tempting to make a sewer orgy joke. If you only know the story of It from the movies, just look it up. Anyway, during this scene, we learned that apparently the attempt at a forced romance between Millie and the rich boy has, completely off screen, been torpedoed by rich kid's parents not inviting Millie's mother to a big party. Well, that's convenient. Suddenly, I find myself thinking this is a musical again because Millie is singing while Dan is struggling to get his car started, and he seems to have no reaction to the singing whatsoever. But when it's over and he has the car started, we cut back to the family home, and Millie walks in to announce that she's engaged. We're not even halfway through the movie yet, so safe to assume this is not going to be a smooth engagement. Especially with Millie's mom being who she is. Right out the gate, she is incredibly passive-aggressive. Emily Gilmore would tell her to dial it back. The party that follows leads to another good joke when the adults are sharing illicit alcohol. Remember, this movie is set during Prohibition. And Millie's brother, who I haven't mentioned much and will probably continue to not mention much as he has not contributed much to the story up to this point, refers to the booze as genuine bathtub gin, to which Fulton says, after trying it, he must have been taking a bath when he made it. An attorney arrives at this point to speak to the father, and the lawyer's name is Edward Norton. Considering how many movies I watch on this show that are older than I am, and in some cases are even older than my parents, I'm surprised this kind of thing hasn't happened more often, but happened so many times in one movie. The 70s Pimp Look, a book titled It, and a lawyer named Edward Norton. I was like... It kind of reminds me of when they brought Raymond Burr back for the Americanized version of Godzilla Returns. I think it was called over there, but we called it the Godzilla 1985 over here. They had to keep calling him Mr. Martin in the movie because in the original Americanized Godzilla, the character's name was Steve Martin. Anyway, total tangent. Yeah. And also, speaking of, Edward Norton is the lawyer from the beginning of the movie. It took me a moment to recognize him, probably because we didn't actually get his name during the opening sequence. But he's here with a cashier's check for $100,000, and it's obviously from Fulton, who Norton gives a sly wink to after handing Millie's parents the check. Again, not halfway through the movie yet. So what's going to go wrong? The mother certainly takes this well, nearly fainting before practically jumping up and down. And, I get it. $100,000 would be a life-changing amount of money for me now, in 2025. When they have a moment alone, Norton tells Fulton he hopes the money doesn't change the family too much. Fulton says he doesn't think that'll happen. Pan over to Millie's mother, telling her husband to tell his store because he can't take his proper place in society if he's still a shopkeep. She and the brother character I barely mentioned talk about hiring 2 chauffeurs. So yeah, the amount of time it took to prove Fulton wrong, that set a land speed record. In fairness though, I put this entirely on the mother character. She has clearly had a major chip on her shoulder about being seen as poor this entire movie. Before the scene is even over, the engagement is over, as Dan walks out saying he's not equipped to marry a rich girl after the mom threw a, "You don't want people thinking you married her for the money, do you?" Wow. Millie doesn't even manage to get in a word edgewise over this. And now the mother is telling Roberta to get rid of her dog to replace him with 2 French poodles. This has only been a few minutes, by the way, not just in screen time, but in universe, and she has already gone off the deep end. And alienated almost half her family. Like, we know that wealth can break people's brains. Some More News has a whole episode about it. But damn! And then she unceremoniously throws Fulton out in the smuggest way possible. Jesus, lady, do you know how much of an asshole you have to be to get me to side with the fucking oil and lumber baron? She is the classic example of the saying that power doesn't corrupt, power exposes. Because the money is for the whole family, not just her, and her husband and daughters handled the sudden influx much better than she or her son did. And, I think honestly Fulton should have seen this coming. The mom and the brother in this family were displaying signs of being classist from pretty much the moment he met them. We go from here to the mom splurging on dresses, followed by a montage of people gossiping about the money the family got. And each time we hear a larger and larger amount than what was actually received. This turns out to be foreshadowing. It pretty much goes on like this for a while, with the mom and brother acting like the kind of archetypal rich assholes you see in lots of movies, and not just from this period. With the father and Millie and Barbara being visibly unhappy, but just going along. We go to Fulton and Dan and the now former dog of the family, who Roberta stops by to visit. Fulton tells Dan to try and look on the bright side of being dumped, that now he has more time to pursue his own interest and possibly become a millionaire one day. There's still about 38 minutes left in the movie, so he's probably going to be walking that one back before long. We fade back to the drugstore where Fulton is still working as a soda jerk for some reason, when a cop walks in, and of course he's Irish, because why wouldn't he be in a 1950s comedy? And he lets slip about a planned raid on a speakeasy where Fulton happens to know that Millie is going to be at because the rich boy she's dating now, just to make her insane mother happy, made her go. With a little help from Dan, Fulton is able to sneak away to try and warn her. I'd have just warned the whole place myself, but that's just me. He's able to help Millie, and unfortunately her douchebag date, get away, but he falls and gets his butt stuck in a drum and is arrested. Dan pays his fine to get him out, and as the two are leaving, they run into Millie, who had come down to try and bail Fulton out herself, which is obviously no longer necessary. We then get a sequence where Fulton joins a card game to help cover the gambling debt of the brother character. I think his name was Howard. Anyway, Fulton manages to win enough to cover it, just in time for the gambling den to be raided and for him to be arrested again. After leading his cellmates in a song, his fine gets paid. Again. As Fulton and Dan get home, what I predicted would happen happens, and Fulton decides he was wrong, telling Dan that if he doesn't do something, Millie will end up marrying the rich douchebag her mom likes, and Dan will end up regretting it for the rest of his life. I mean, Millie would end up regretting it too, but I'm going to be kind and assume Fulton didn't think that needed to be said. Fulton then goes to the family's new home, where he's meeting Millie, who has offered to help him with a gallery showing. Turns out he's leaned into the surrealism thing for his cover story as a painter, and it's managed to work out for him. Oh, no, never mind. It was a ruse to get her out of the house to help her get back together with Dan. Yeah, I guess that makes more sense. Speaking for myself, though, him actually managing to succeed at surrealist painting might have been funnier. Also, the judge he was before both times he was arrested arrives at the family home with his wife and recognizes Fulton. From the courtroom, not as Fulton. Fulton has been going under the assumed name John Smith the whole time. Fulton takes Millie to the movie theater where Dan is watching a silent film complete with a live band playing the film score just below the screen. It doesn't work out, and Fulton offers his shoulder for Millie to cry on, which a local rich couple sees and, of course, has the worst possible interpretation of. Mercifully, the misunderstanding doesn't last too long, though the scene does contain a great moment where the father says, "For once, I have to agree with my wife," which is kind of a hack joke on its own, but the mother's silent reaction when he says it made it worth it. I kind of wish I used clips on this show now, because I don't think my description or even a screen cap would do it justice. This scene also has Millie's parents and the rich douche boy's parents agreeing to announce their engagement as soon as possible. Never mind what either of them think, of course. Rich douche hasn't even proposed. This is all the parents doing. We go from there to Christmas, and Fulton getting a phone call from his lawyer, getting fired, much to his delight, and Dan coming to say he had his ticket and was ready to leave on the next train. As for what the lawyer was calling about, you probably saw this coming, but the family has pretty much blown through the $100,000 already. Well, that's oversimplifying it. There's something about a stock going bad and $25,000 being owned and yada yada yada. It's Wall Street crap that is pretty much designed for people like me to not understand, so that's easier for sociopathic nerds to steal millions. Speaking of millions, that montage I mentioned earlier about the rumor mill surrounding the family bumping up the amount of money they got paid pays off. As it turns out, the town just assumes that they're straight-up millionaires, which Rich Doucheboy's father blames them for when Millie's father asks for a loan on the $25,000 and says no. Not sure how this guy was supposed to have countered rumors he wasn't there to hear in the first place, but whatever. The entire Rich Douche family leaves. Millie's father ends up revealing to everyone that they're broke. Millie excitedly calls off the engagement and runs off to find Dan. Roberta is happy about getting her old house and dog back. We never actually see Millie and Dan reconcile. That happens off screen. And we eventually fade to them, the family, moving back into their old house, and Fulton comes around to say goodbye. He learns that Roberta had entered one of his surrealist paintings in a contest, which he won, and he leaves town with the family wishing him a happy new year. The end. Random thoughts I had while watching the movie. This is not at all relevant to the movie, but it seems who the lead of the movie is depends on where you look. The actual film credits give Piper Laurie top billing, but depending on what poster or movie website you look at, top billing is given either to Rock Hudson or Charles Coburn, who played Fulton. The girl who plays Barbara, Millie's younger sister, reminds me of someone, but I cannot for the life of me place who. She's not whoever I am thinking of, I can say that much, because of when this movie was made. The person who I can see in my head, but I can't think of their name, would have been born well after, but, oh god, this is going to drive me nuts. For whatever reason, the short summary in the DVD case for this collection describes the second half of the movie as if it's the entire plot. And 4, I think I might have forgotten to number them, but screw it, I don't feel, I haven't been feeling great today. I think I accidentally swallowed some grass when I was out using the weed whacker. So yeah, 4, I wasn't trying to be cute by not using the parent characters' names. I honestly just can't remember them and didn't bother to write them down. Anyway, final verdict. I'm not entirely sure why this is in the Rock Hudson collection, as he's not only not the lead, one could argue that he's the third or fourth most important character of the film, I guess depending on where you think Barbara belongs. No, Roberta. I made that mistake when I was writing this script, and I almost... Anyway, with all that said, this movie's not bad. Sorry. It's certainly dated in places, but nothing particularly offensive, apart from the whole deal with the fake border ad. But that's pretty impressive considering both when the movie was made and when it's set. I got quite a few laughs out of it, though most of them come from Charles Coburn as Fulton. But props also need to go to Gigi Perot. I'm sure I'm butchering the name there, but she played Roberta. Child actors are always pretty hit or miss by virtue of being so young, but she pretty much consistently hits. So yeah, season 12 is off to a good start. I think this might be our best season opener movie since, since Babyface Morgan all the way back in season 5. Damn. Well, here's hoping that's a bellwether for how the next 5 movies are going to go. Speaking of which, next up for us will be... I gotta get the DVD case. Come September. Have fun. Stay safe. Come September, of course, being the name of the movie. My dumbass forgot to mention that.